We are now recording.
Live. Live from
Live and direct.
Oh, this is great. So I don't know how much I'm singing to the choir. How many of you outsource services with your business? Yeah, I knew you did, Sandy. You talked about strategic partners. So do any
basically just accounting.
Okay, well, accounting works. It's better than choosing to do it yourself.
Well, you know, it's interesting. You said not bookkeeping, but accounting. I have outsourced bookkeeping to 4 different bookkeepers, and every time I have to go in and fix everything.
Oh dear.
And so I said, forget this bookkeeper stuff. I'm doing it myself. It'll save me more time. I don't know. They seem to just, for me, bookkeepers haven't worked out.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the conundrums of this, you know, is how do you find somebody really good and trust them, you know, to make it work. So I've got a little PowerPoint presentation, and then we'll come back and talk about it, because I have some thoughts about how we as a group could kind of use this information. So let me find what I'm going to do here today. We've taken to using Zoom at PCC for just about everything at this point. How to grow using contractors. And we started last March. We went directly with all of our classes going on to Zoom. So I teach on Zoom all the time, just so you know. So let me give you a little history here. You know, I've kind of been working with solo businesses as my focus for, let me say, at least the last 10 or 12 years. And it took me a while to kind of realize how big this is. The statistics I got from the Small Business Administration are that 70 to 75% of small businesses never hire an employee. And I got it from a study that they were doing that was full of angst, like, oh, where have we gone wrong? But people don't hire employees. But it continues to be true in Oregon, well, in the Portland region, let me put it that way, Portland, Salem, right down the Willamette Valley, there's 395,000 small businesses, and about 71% of them are solo businesses. And, you know, I mean, this is the way, I mean, they should all be members of AHB, right? And this is one of the ways people have really decided is makes sense to be in business. And I can remember that people used to be kind of look down on solo businesses, and they'd say, oh, that's great to work solo. You can work half time, choose any 12 hours a day you want to work. Okay. Remember people saying that? Did they say that to you, Becky and Sandy, you know? And a lot of us believe that, you know, and out of that, we think, well, I want to be solo, but wow, what that means is I've got to be like a Jill of all trades. I've got to learn how to do everything. I've got to learn how to do my website. I've got to learn how to do my bookkeeping. I've got to learn how to, you know, do my marketing materials. I've got to learn how to do my own editing. I've got to, you know, and so you would be in this kind of a situation. You'd have a relatively modest amount of billable hours, and then you'd have all this time when you're learning a new program, or you're learning, you know, how to do this, or you're learning how to put a photo on something that you're going to run for marketing, and, you know, and you spend a lot of time doing that kind of thing. But I think my contribution is what I call the water bug model. I said, oh, there's just got to be a better way for us solos, for our businesses together, rather than assume we're going to work, you know, 12 hours a day, 6 or 7 days a week. There's got to be a way to get some help, and yet at the same time, not hire a bunch of employees. Because I'll tell you, if there's anything I've learned, it's that employees have a kind of have an expectation that you're going to provide work for them all the time, okay? And I think that's one of the reasons why we often resist hiring an employee. And we think, I'm going to have a commitment, I'm going to have to pay them payroll, I'm going to have to keep them busy. I know when I had my accounting firm, you know, it was like that. I used to say the staff all had, you know, what I call baby bird syndrome, you know, feed me, you know, those little mouths hanging open. Like they were expecting me to provide all the work and they would do it. And I thought, well, this is crazy because, you know, the reason that you bring people on is because they're supposed to support you. But I think there's something in the relationship between being an employee and having an employee as an expectation that the employer is going to provide the work and you're going to do it, and being a subcontractor, being outsourced to you. Because if you're an outsourced supplier, it's not an employee-employer relationship. It's a business-to-business relationship, much more a relationship of equals, okay? And so it's a great way to get to spread the knowledge and the recognition of your business and provide better work and services because you hire people who are really, really good at what they're doing. And therefore it expands your business and it keeps you happy doing what you love. I'm just absolutely convinced that the heart and soul of being in a solo business is that you figure out what you are really good at, and you work really hard to make the majority of your working time spent on doing the things that you love and the things that have to support what you love, but you may not be good at, you outsource. So this is a picture. Somebody drew this for me. Don't you like this? I call it the water bug model. And here you are, you're the body of the water bug, and these are your legs of the things that you need, you know, for your businesses. You need creative services like a web developer, graphic designer, photographer, you know, other things. You need marketing services like web marketing tools, e-commerce, maybe a marketing consultant, somebody to write a marketing plan for you. Social media, you need support services. So a lot of times, a lot of admin services like posting into your database, sorting through your database, using your database, maybe doing things like a newsletter, maybe doing things like a blog, maybe doing things like doing your airline appointments, meeting scheduling, all those things. And legal services, we know all the different things that we need in legal services. You need contracts signed, you need questions answered, and financial services. We were just kind of talking about that with Sheldon, you know, that he's had a hard time finding a good bookkeeper. But anyway, that you get this kind of a water bug, you get this group, this activity, and all of these people are contracting to you, but you are not their employer. You are a business and you're contracting with their business, and it behooves both of you to take care of each other because you're in a business-to-business relationship. And what I have found is that this really works. It has really worked for me, let me say that. So I will tell you that I have had two people for, probably the last 5 years who have been legs on my little water bug system. And one is a woman who was a web developer, and then she's continued on and keeping my, she was also a graphic designer, but in keeping my website up to date and keeping it out of crashing, of giving me advice on things. I've said, gee, I'd like to do this. What do you think? Well, let's take a look at this kind of a thing. You know, she's helped me make sure that I can sell my books on the web, that I can sell classes on the web. And then I have another woman who is a outsourced person who does marketing services. And she writes all of my blogs and all of my newsletters for me. So I've got 2 people that are doing this. I don't have a person that does financial services because, after all, I am a recovering CPA. So I do my own taxes and billing and stuff like that. Okay. And periodically, I hire somebody to come in and do support services for me. Depends on what I need. So this is what I've got in mind when I'm talking to you about growing by using contractors, because in every instance, I'm thinking each and every one of these souls out here has a vested interest in my success. Just like your outsource, or as Sandy called them, her strategic partners, have a vested interest in her success. Why? Because she brings them business, okay? And they like doing business with her. It's probably, they look at it as interesting work. She pays on time. You know, if she finds new stuff, she includes them with it, which means they get to go on adventures. They like to be part of it. And what a great thing. So I'm going to ask you later, Sandy, but I'm going to assume that the people that you are using as your strategic partners make referrals of jobs to you. Maybe they solve problems for you. Maybe they make suggestions on things that you and they should bid on together. I mean, at least that's my idea of how it should be. And I want to tell you, I came to doing this after having a CPA firm for 15 years. And we had lots of staff, you know, lots of accountants and clerks and people like that. And I can't remember them ever coming to me and saying, I've got some ideas on a service we should offer, or a way we should do something, or, you know, here's something, a way that we could expand the business. I just don't remember that. But I certainly remember that both my webmaster and my writer, you know, my newsletter writer, make suggestions to me all the time. And not only do they make suggestions to me, but they will remind me if I haven't done something. You know, they'll remind me, you've got something sitting on constant contact that needs to get out, or have you reviewed that newsletter yet? You know, which is great. I need a little nagging in my life. And so I find this works, and I recommend it to people quite often. So the question I usually get, the resistance question I usually get is, but how can I afford that? So the other piece that comes along is pricing. And just so you know, out in the community, I'm known as Jackie Raise Your Prices Peterson. You need to know that about me, because I think that we've got to include the cost of our subcontractors or our outsourced people in our pricing so that we can afford to pay them, and we can afford to get paid. And if we've got somebody doing some work for us, we put into our bid our time to supervise them, to oversee them, to check their work, okay? And so there's going to be fewer of your hours in the fee and more of the contractor hours, but we want them to have, most of the time they do, a lower rate than yours. So, you know, you should be able to get an override on their time, as well as, you know, some freedom in your own contract. And this is true that the work is going to be better usually because you're hiring experts to do their part of the work. Okay, they are good at it. Becky, I was thinking when you said you're learning a new a program, you know, a database program. You know, I have a friend right now who is bringing a piece of writing work to market, and she's using a software called Scrivener. She's never used it before, but she has found someone who is an expert in it, and she is buying some lessons from them. So instead of, you know, worrying about how to learn the program, she's spending some time with it and then going to the expert and saying, okay, here's the questions that I have. And, you know, she's buying some expert time, but it will move her along, and it will mean that she can get her job to market, and it will mean that she will not have as many problems or backups or errors or duplications, because she's buying expertise to do that and help her. You know, and the way that she can afford it is like everybody else, that she's going to make sure that her price for her product is high enough to cover her costs. This speaks to one of the things I have found as a consultant for a long time, and that is the drive to think that everybody wants to buy the lowest price, okay? And I'm going to say to you, yes, but what everybody wants is the lowest price of the best quality, okay? And I keep experiencing that if people understand the value that you are bringing them and the quality that you are bringing them, they will pay a marginally higher price for what you are delivering. They will understand what you are doing in order to give them the best possible product, the best possible delivery date, the best possible quality. But you've got to tell them what you are delivering to them. You've got to tell them the value that you are providing. And I think that's kind of one of the places where we fall down, is that, you know, we want them to just see that. But we've got to tell them that. We've got to tell them what they're getting for what we are charging. And when somebody questions your price, instead of saying, oh, well, I can give you a discount, we need to say things like, well, let me remind you of the value I'm providing for you. You know, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, and I'm doing this, and I'm delivering it here, and I'm, you know, it's going to have this included in it. And when you get a product that's got that kind of value in it, this is the kind of price you're going to pay for it. And, you know, if we're willing to remind people of the value that we're bringing them, 9 times out of 10, they will buy it because they're thrilled that they have somebody that can talk to them, is going to do follow-up, is going to stand behind their product, you know, that is going to guarantee their quality, that is going to have done good checking for grammar and spelling and pagination and you know, all the things that you do when you're writing, you know, making sure that there is consistency in the way something is presented. And certainly, thinking of Sheldon's work, Sheldon does a huge job in backing up his quality. I mean, he just showed us his spices, and he said, I'm using spices that are only available to people who are professional cooks. And this is going to give my chicken a fabulous taste. And I have, I'm talking about a new grill, because what that means is that we can serve people at a party, and all the chicken will basically be done at the same moment. So people aren't standing around, you know, waiting for the chicken to finish and, okay, you got one drumstick, you know, but I'll be able to deliver it on time. And if Sheldon can talk about those things, and he can talk about, he tried 4 or 5 different types of spices, and this was the one that was the most popular, or that he practiced on friends and neighbors until he got it absolutely right on how to cook that chicken through in the least amount of time with the highest flavor. You know, if he can tell that story, people are going to be very excited to buy from him, and they're not going to be pushing him on the price. Anyway, I'm going down the pricing road because I find that such a big thing. Okay, so let me give you an example of outsourcing. You're a writer and you need a new website. So you decide to learn the software and do your own. Well, okay, so the likely outcome is that more time is spent, lots of frustration, and it might look like it was done by an amateur. Okay? I mean, or you could have had some landing pages or some special purchasing pages in it, but you didn't know how to do it. So you passed that by because you're so frustrated just getting the little bits of it done. And what if you had hired somebody to help you? Okay. And you could do it this way. You're a writer, you need a new website. So you shop and you hire a contractor. And they take you to an entire exploration process and make you a proposal with a price and a guideline and a timeline. This isn't your next door neighbor. This isn't your nephew, you know, who says, oh, sure, Aunt Millie, I can do that for you. And then you never see them again. You know, this is somebody who does it as a profession. And so when they approach you, they have questions they want to ask. They have maybe a form for you to fill out. They ask you about other websites you have seen and you've liked, and you look at them together and they say, let's choose some colors and some design and some fonts and things that you like, because that'll give me some direction. And what are the main points that you want to emphasize on your website? And, you know, you might tell them and they might say to you, but, you know, I've heard you talk about blah, 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 blah. Where is that in here? Because that part of your proposal or your sales really appealed to me. And I can't hear you talking about that. And you say, you know, you're right. I haven't talked about that. I mean, at least this is what's happened to me. And you're right. I should talk about that. Or people who have said, you know, you're known in the community this way. Why don't you put those things on your website? Okay. And they have a relationship with you, which is pretty amazing. And they may refer you, but they'll be there to stand behind their work. And should there be problems or other changes needed, and because they did a good job, you get more work, they possibly get you more work. I mean, these are wonderful things. So, you know, this is to me what happens when you hire a contractor. Is it a pain in the butt? You bet. Okay. So let's kind of talk about that. The benefits of hiring a contractor: more professional work. It gets done on your terms, time, price, delivery, look, you know, and you build a long-term relationship with someone. I love that Sandy called her strategic partners. You add a member to your team and you've created a resource for you and your clients. But there's some challenges, okay? So maybe you don't know how to find somebody. Well, I want to tell you, I ask Google questions all the time. You'd be amazed at the questions I ask Google. And Google kind of comes up with an answer. So if I were looking for somebody to teach me how to use Scrivener, I'd get online and Google it, and I'd ask my network of people, do you know anybody that knows Scrivener? What's Scrivener? You know, we could talk about it. And you might worry that you don't have a way to hire them. And I'm going to say, always check their references, always. Ask for references and check them. And if somebody says, you know, gives you some strange answers, don't hire them. This is probably what I think is the biggest one, why these things don't necessarily do well, because you've not thought your project through, and so you're not giving good instructions. You're kind of going, oh, well, we can do however you need to do it. No, you need to say, this is my project. These are the pieces that are involved in it. I need to get it in this kind of condition by this kind of date, or I need to have my website up by June 1st. I've looked at it. These are the landing pages I'd like to have. This is the way I would like to present myself. I would like to have a time frame from you, and I understand that part of this will be mine. This, we all know, in doing a website, one of the big things that holds people up is that the person whose website is being done has no idea that they're going to have to write content. And so, they get the assignment of writing content and they are not ready for it. Okay. And so they delay things. Actually, I have to tell you, I have a woman that I have worked with who does websites, and she's put a pause paragraph in her contract that says, if you haven't gotten me your copy by such and such a date, I am going to pause this contract until you get it to me. And if you wanted to ask me for some leads on, people who can help you writing content, let me know. You certainly need to be able to pay them on time. This is important. And you need to put time into the job yourself. You cannot hand anything to anybody and you walk away. That does not work. So it all takes time, but the benefit is a long-term relationship with somebody who's on your side. This is really important. So where can you find resources and referrals? Well, I think that's one of the reasons we're involved in something like AHB. I think that's so we can ask for our associates, or we can ask our colleagues, we can ask our clients, and how can you check references? Well, ask, what work did they do? Was the work satisfying? Did you have a contract? Did they get the job as requested? Would you recommend them? This is always one of my questions. Would you recommend them? And then think it through. What do you want? Look at others' websites. Find some that you like, others that you do not. What pages do you want? What marketing tools do you want? And how do you want to be seen? Do you need somebody to help you write your copy? A lot of people do. Do you have some photos to use? Do you have a logo? Do you want to keep the site updated or have that done for you? Okay? Because those are all challenges and all things that you need to think about on a web project. It's not a simple little thing to get that done. Okay? If you don't have a contract, any business can use the Lewis and Clark Law School. Okay? They have attorneys that are, well, they're in school and they're studying, and they will help for free. It takes a while to get to them, but you can use them for free. You can also use NOLO that'll give you some forms, and you can put together what you think is a good contract and then take it to your attorney and say, well, you review it. Can you pay them? Well, build it into your budget and raise your own prices so you're not always living on the edge. I'm convinced that people always talk about the lowest bidder, but that what they really want is the best quality. And this means that you can build a reserve so that you can hire the resources that you need instead of, feeling like you're always on the edge. And then budget your time to work with the contractor. Okay, and aside about pricing, because I find this all comes together. Outsourcing comes with it, and pricing. And let me say something. One of the things you do when you save yourself the time of struggling through learning something on your own and instead get some help is that it's going to give you time. I mean, it's not only going to give you a better product, but it's going to give you the gift of time. And the question is, what are you going to do with that time? Well, I think that's a great resource to use to go find the jobs that you want. How often do we say, I don't have enough time to market? Well, there's some marketing time, when you're not out there, running around trying to get something done or trying to learn something that you're going to need, but it's time to market. And you could get really clear about exactly what kind of work that you are looking for. And you could take some of that time and, go find the jobs that you want, which would be more at a high price, more exactly the type of work that you want. Anyway, so about pricing, I make all my students do a competitive analysis, sitting down and figuring out who competes with them. And then I have them run a list of prices from low to high and tell them to start by pricing themselves at 85% of the high range. Okay, that's where they start. And they say, well, but I'm just new, I can't defend that price. And my advice is what you do is you quote that rate and then you discount from it. You don't come in and quote a lower rate because people remember what you're quoting. And so you don't want to get it in their head that you're quoting the lower rate. You want to quote the higher rate and then give them a discount for things, maybe because you're new to the project or new to the area or something like that, okay? But the most important thing is to price yourself high enough to cover your expenses, including those contractors that you need to hire. If you, this is a statement, I've made this statement probably 1,000 times, and I just absolutely, totally believe this. If you do not price yourself high enough, people do not think you are any good. That's what they think. They may not say it to you, but we're in a society where they evaluate your quality based on what you charge. And they assume that you know how good you are and you charge accordingly. And the corollary to this is if your clients understand the value you are offering, they will pay your price. Always articulate your value. Always be articulating your value. You don't have to defend your price, but you have to articulate your value. I think when somebody asks you how much is it, you say to them, let me remind you what you are getting in this package. You articulate your value. So I hope I've stirred up a lot of questions. So what are some of the yeah buts that we've got on this? We got some yeah buts?
On price, but like California recently forced everybody to become W-2 employees.
Yeah.
There was just a thing in the Oregon State Legislature about, not wanting, they're not very happy about W-2 employee, about contractors. They want everybody to become employees.
Right.
I face it, my challenge, I have events and I need help, like I only need help to serve, a couple times a month.
Right.
Do I have to make that person an employee, or can they be an independent contractor and just help me as needed?
Are they pushing you on that, Sheldon?
Well, one of my accountant is.
Uh-huh. How come?
Because she thinks they don't qualify as independent contractors.
Is that because you're telling them what time they have to show up and what they have to do? And
yeah,
uh-huh.
I think so.
Yeah.
But I don't have, like now I haven't used anybody for a year now. So I would have had to pay a payroll company for a year.
Yes.
For no payroll.
Mm-hmm.
And now I may use them at a wedding coming up. Actually, I take that back. I had one wedding in December that I used some people for. I ended up just paying them cash.
Oh, that's better.
But like I said, some of my accountant and business class people are saying that they should be employees rather than contractors. So that's what I'm running into.
Yeah, that's a hard one with somebody like you who's got all those temporary people like that, because you'd have them for hours and then they'd be gone, huh?
Yeah, and then I wouldn't need them for months.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what to tell you. I would move in the direction that you've been in of keeping them as independent contractors, but there is very big pressure on that, as you're saying. There's big pressure on making them employees.
Why is there so much pressure on that, on that?
Because then they're in the system. Okay, it isn't so much from you, it's that they go into the system. They wind up name by name, person by person in the unemployment reports, okay? And they can track them and, you know, into their computers. Whereas if you pay them on, you know, you pay them just a check, and if they don't make more than $600 in a year, you don't really even have to send them a 1099. And so then you get unreported income, you know, because they don't file. And
I think, sorry to jump in, but the other issue, working a lot in a manufacturing industry as I do, is I agree with Jackie about, you know, getting them in the system, but also from a, you know, good-hearted standpoint, government wants to make sure that people aren't being taken advantage of. You're not paying them $1 an hour and they're desperate, so they're going to do it. Or that there's an on the job or on the scene incident and people are afraid to do anything about that because they don't have the personal resources to deal with an injury or some kind of issue. So
and they may not be covered by workers' comp.
right. So those are some of the issues just from a you know, it's not like you're sitting in an office or something. If you're serving food and you got injured, or again, the fair pay issue, especially we see this a lot in our member companies in California, where people will pay undocumented workers
Yeah,
cash and they're not being paid a fair wage. So I think that that's one of the challenges with food service, especially because people will bring in relatives, not pay them a fair wage. Everything's kind of off the books. So I think if you're paying a contractor and you're documenting it and that person has other people that they're doing work for, that's a really good protection. That's probably your best protection, is if the people you are using have other contract work that they're doing.
yeah, right.
Well, most of them don't. You know, I use college students. I have, you know, a mother who doesn't work, who just, you know, helps me out when needed. And, you know, I've used college students.
Do you pay minimum wage?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They get better pay from me than they would get from anybody.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's that whole system. They're trying to get them into the system, you know, for all the reasons Sandy said, and, you know, the ones we've talked about. The worry I have for you, particularly if your accountant has started pointing it out to you, is that she probably thinks you're vulnerable. And, you know, if you get audited, it will be very expensive.
And you could potentially have to go back in time and pay Social Security and workman's comp and so forth.
Right. I mean, that's the problem. So the more visible your company becomes, the more, you know, vulnerable you are to that.
But you might find another caterer who needs people occasionally and encourage your people to get some other contracts. That would be really helpful.
I was just thinking I would find another caterer also and see if you can find out what they're doing and what basis they do it on. Are you going after the restaurant benefits in the new Americans Rescue Act?
Well, I'm watching the website. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because certainly caterers are covered in that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I have the website booked, and I'm, you know, every morning I go and refresh it.
Yeah.
You know, they're
One of the things that does happen in this is if you, you particularly Sheldon, because you've got so many of them that come through on a temporary basis, if you would move to payroll, you would have more control over the people.
yeah,
Okay.
a lot of times though I use the people once and never use them again.
Is that right? So you don't get any that you use multiple
Well, I
times?
take that back. I have two people that help me more regularly, but I have a number of people that I've just used once or twice.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'd talk to another caterer if I were you and see what they do,
But
you know,
a lot
what
of
their
them-
rationale is.
I mean, I'm not like any traditional business.
You what?
I'm not like any traditional business.
No, you're not a traditional business.
You know, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What else other than Sheldon's exciting problems? We'll just all go eat his chicken.
Really.
So,
Like if my wife were to help me, how does that play into it?
well, that's a different situation, you know. She would like it to be paid, you know, of course, but she probably does not have to be an employee.
Mhm.
Yeah, Becky.
Well, what question Sheldon just asked, we had a financial guy on here recently who was talking about ways that you could compensate your spouse,
Oh, okay.
paying
Yeah.
them benefits or paying for their education. I can't remember how that went, but he
Yeah,
had
I got to
some
meet.
great.
He's my
Remember that?
accountant. So he's my accountant, so I have to meet with him yet.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you know about him.
Well, that would be good if there's something that she would like you to pay for.
And I thought that the contractor question was really about how many hours a week someone worked for you.
It's more of a matter of control. Okay.
Hmm.
It's do you direct all their activities? If you direct all their activities, like when they have to show up, how they do the job, what they do, you provide the tools, you provide the material, you know, then really by the definitions in the state of Oregon, they're an employee.
Yeah.
If-
But we
if-
give them the option of whether they can show up or not. If they don't, they don't show up, then
Yeah.
fine.
If
That's-
they're a contractor, they have some autonomy in the sense that they have part of the decision making. You know, they kind of bring their own tools and they bring their own expertise. They
set their own rates.
yeah, they set their rate. They, you know, I mean, there's an independent contractor bit with them. Okay. So I think we're going to see more, what would I say, discussion about this stuff. You know, we see it in the paper periodically that, you know, one state has decided all of the Uber drivers are employees, and then another state says they're not. But, you know, there has been such a huge growth in the number of people that are operating independently, you know, that we're going to have to clarify much better the definitions of what's going on. And then when you have the unemployment, you know, that came through with the CARES Act, you know, the PUA for the first time that covered people that are independent contractors, which is totally different and, you know, kind of off what's ever been done before. That blurred the lines even more, you know. I kind of think we need to look at our employment contracts and the way that we've got them set up. And, you know, how we do things in this country is that we careen from one side to another for a while and eventually, you know, we work it all out. I think we're in that mode. But what I want to say is use people, you know. When I started talking about this, there were hardly people who were independents who, you know, would do office administration for you. Oh, now they're all over the place. And even though Sheldon's had a hard time finding a good bookkeeper, there are good bookkeepers, you know, and you shouldn't have to go back and do that all yourself, Sheldon. You know, you should not have to do that. But I think in the areas, particularly of marketing and admin and social media and in websites, there are people that rather than you know, saying, I've got to learn all of this so that I can do this one task, go find somebody, you know, who can help you and give you the time to go find the jobs that you're really looking for. I thought actually, one of the things that would be kind of an interesting end, if you will, to this conversation would be if each of us thought of one thing our fellow club members could hire us to do. You know, that you've got expertise in, and you would say, if you need this, you should call me because I'm your AHB member, and you know, you could hire me to do this. I mean, I thought maybe this is something we could do, and we could just know, you know, Nancy does this, and Becky does this, and Sheldon does this, and Zoe does that. And maybe that would be a way for us to interact with each other in a different way. I don't know. I mean, that was one of the things I thought. What are you really good at? We know what you're really good at, Sheldon. But what are you really good at, you know, that somebody could hire you to do if they needed that help? Does that sound like something that would be good for us to do at AHB?
Definitely.
That's what I thought, because you guys are very talented. But do we think of hiring each other? What a concept. So that's what I was thinking with this. Because, you know, I'll tell you, I couldn't survive very well if I didn't get some of this help that I get. I get good help. It took me a while. It took me a while. I think I went through 4 webmasters. And you know why? Because I wasn't clear about what I wanted. Because I didn't do well all those things on there until finally I thought, wait a minute, you know, I can't expect somebody else to be in charge of this for me. I've got to figure out what it is I want. I've got to figure out what's important to me, you know, and then it worked. Because I could answer questions and I could say, I got it.
Can I ask you a question about that website contract, Jackie? Did you, so you paid someone to help you develop it after you decided what content really to be there, and you helped develop the content too? Do you also pay a monthly fee now for them to maintain it for you?
I have done that. Yes, I have done that. You know, and I'm paying her now because I've taken a couple things off the website. I'm not going to pursue them anymore. So I pay her $35 a month as a maintenance fee, you know, and I'm very clear to her that what I want, if something crashes, something falls apart, somebody has a problem with something, somebody contacts me and says, this didn't work, I'm sending her straight to her because I wouldn't know what to do with it. And I want her to be, you know, in line and do that. And, you know, and she has. So that's what I do. It's a good question.
Yeah, I asked it partly because I have a friend who has a business that it isn't even off the ground yet, and he was paying someone to maintain a website for $100 a month. So you're getting a good deal there.
And you know, the lady that writes my blogs and newsletters, I really value what she does because, you know, the end of the month comes around and we have a meeting and she says to me, okay, well, you know, because I feature different people who are encore entrepreneurs, and she said, you have some people for me to talk to? And I say, here's some. And, you know, she contacts them and she takes a picture and she interviews them and puts it up on Constant Contact, and I go read it and edit it, you know, and people are very happy with that, and it's great. And, you know, we do 1 or 2 a month, and it's perfect. And, but she doesn't let me slide very far away, you know, before she says, hey, we don't have our, you know, our work plan for the next month. I appreciate being nagged. So you can all take that seriously.
You know, I must say, even though I haven't found a bookkeeper now that I do my own books, I understand where my money goes and how it works much better than if I had somebody else do it.
Yes. So you understand it well enough now that they could speak to you with reports. Mhm.
Theoretically, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you probably know what you would ask somebody to do. My guess is that 4 bookkeepers ago, you had, it kind of scared you, and so you figured they were the expert and you gave it to them and they kind of did what they thought was important, but it wasn't what you thought was important, but you didn't know what you thought was important. I've been there.
Yeah, that's.
I think
probably some truth to that.
the other interesting thing about this group is that we're all very talented in many areas and very
Yes.
competent and very good at learning things.
Mhm.
And so I wouldn't necessarily, in my case, I have to design something for a website that's due tomorrow, and I'm not a designer. And if I were going to hire somebody, I would definitely hire Becky, who's excellent. But I would just say, if your comfort zone is not, is to learn something quickly and make it adequate, I think that's what a lot of us can do. But the push would be what's outside that circle.
Yeah.
And so recently, a team that Zoe and I are on together, our client hired a telemarketer. Well, there's no way in the world I would want to do telemarketing. I don't know anything about it. And it was something that I felt like, okay, I know I'm not comfortable with that. I'm going to find someone, and the way we do it is or I don't know how Zoe does it, but generally I have my strategic partners work directly with my client. So we're on the same team, but we're all little spokes off the client.
Uh-huh.
So I just recommended the telemarketer, and I thought, wow, now this is something new. There was never that moment where I thought, oh, I'm going to go learn how to do this. And then I started thinking, I really need to push that more. What's the next level of referral that I can help my client be successful? Be on a team with people I know are reliable. That's the other thing, is the
Oh my
last thing
gosh,
you want to
yes.
do is refer someone who's not going to be good. And so it's really got me thinking about, who would be that next, we have web providers and writers and all these people that we can refer back and forth, but I'm trying to push that circle even wider. And so, and then just, I don't want to go on and on about this, but the other thing that's really interesting when you were talking about pricing is not only to work with other contractors, either to hire them or to have your client hire them, is to be the contractor for others. Because what happens then is some of that pricing nervousness goes away when you see how easily someone else can sell your services.
Yeah.
One of my clients marks my services up 100%. And all of a sudden you think, well, good grief, why am I pricing this so reasonably? Just in general, I kind of have my comfort zone.
Right.
And then he said, well, I could charge even more if I said this, he said, this is just an easy amount to mark it up. And so he and I have started actually partnering together on pitching, again, pushing the limits, how far can we go with him taking my services, and then I get normally between 50% and 75% of whatever he gets. So, I was like, hey, go sell a $15,000 job and I'll take half of it. So that, then all of a sudden your value and your pricing gets a completely different reference point. If someone else thinks you're worth 15,000, it's like, oh, wow, there's no way I would ever ask that.
Yeah. And Sandy, what you're talking about also is that uncertainty we have is what happens working on our own.
Right.
Because if you were in a firm, you would be getting pushed about your rate all the time. So one of the things that happens to us is on our own, you know, where we don't have others around us, is we don't get that friction that kind of pushes us to go for a higher price, you know? And we say, oh, I'm happy here, this is okay. And the other guy comes along and doubles what you would charge, you know, and you think, man, I've been leaving money on the table.
Exactly.
And that's kind of one of the benefits also of working with other people, you know, is that they kind of push you. And that's a good thing, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, anything else? We've had some good discussion here.
Yeah,
I've enjoyed it.
pretty interesting, good stuff.
It is interesting, isn't it, Nancy? You know, you think, where could I do better? Where could I, you know, and I've always looked at it too as saving time, you know, because especially if it has to do with a computer, it is very difficult for me to learn it. And, you know, I want somebody to show me. I want somebody to teach me. So I don't want to mess around learning it myself. I learned that early on. Okay.
Very good.
All right.
I don't know if it's relevant or not. We talked about it earlier, but the Bee has always used freelancers for all its writing,
Mm,
and still does. All my writers are freelancers. They pick their own topic. The only requirement I give them is that if they don't have it by the deadline, I can't use it. And if I can't use it, you don't get paid.
there you go.
The newspaper, the people I work for keep baffled saying, well, why don't you ask them to turn in at a certain date so you can use it on the website or in the middle of the month? And I said, that isn't the way it works. I can only give them the deadline. And if I have lots of different deadlines, then they won't turn them in anytime when I want them.
Yeah.
So that's how it works. But it works pretty well because they want to get paid for it. So although I can't assign them anything, they kind of know what I'm going to print, and that's what they give me. And I will edit it if necessary to make it fit the style of the paper, and we'll proceed with it. And it works very well. So I'm the only full-time person who works for the paper.
Wow.
In fact,
Wow.
Sandy is a part-time, is a contracted salesperson for the paper. And if she sells something, she gets paid for it. And if she doesn't, she doesn't.
Okay. That's
And the
So
performance.
it can work as long as you keep the rules completely clear on that.
Mhm.
I just can't assign anything to anybody.
Well, and it's also a situation where you set the prices, right?
In this case, yeah, because that if they want to freelance for us, I tell them what the price, what they get paid, and under what circumstances they get paid, and that's how we do it. And that seems to not cause any problem with the lawyers. That's what we pay for things.
For the freelancers, everybody has a different style of working. So people that can write quickly, who can hustle the stories quickly, you know, they're obviously they're going to earn more. I tend to take a long time and write this long kind of, you know, prosaic piece, and then yeah.
Well, and Becky's done it. You know, she is one of our freelancers. She does it just occasionally, but I have 3 that regularly turn things in, and one of them who makes a living doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So while we're worrying about whether we're skating the edge of getting into trouble, it just seems, at least in our work here at the Bee, that if you keep the rules clear and they are rules that are approved for freelancers, it works.
Yeah.
And nobody worries about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. Well,
if they give me a picture to go with it, I pay, and I use it, I pay for the picture.
very
If they
good.
gave me a picture they didn't shoot, they know in advance, I'm not going to pay them for somebody else's picture. I will assume they cleared it, and they don't get paid for that. But if they took it themselves, I pay them for it.
All right. Well, I think that's all I have to say.
Okay, well, it's a fascinating talk. We have recorded it, and I've already notified by email our pilot when he lands wherever he's going that he will have a chance to see it. And the two other people who couldn't make it tonight will be able to see it. And I thank you very much for having done the presentation. Your work is
Wow.
always excellent and very thought-provoking.
Well, thanks.
Good job.
Good to see you all.
And it's also nice to have you as a member. So maybe
Well,
we'll see you at a
thanks.
meeting too.
Yeah, it's I have one program I teach for the Small Business Development Center. It's called the Business Design Series. I get all the newbies, you know, the people who say, I kind of think I might like to start a business. We say, we have a class for you. And anyway, it's the problem with it is it moves around the class. It's 4 weeks, 2 hours a week, and it's usually in the evening, and sometimes it's Mondays, sometimes it's Thursdays, sometimes it's Tuesdays. They did that basically because they were moving it between campuses.
Mhm.
And of course, now it's all on Zoom. So anyway, we'll see what happens with that.
Okay,
kinda
well, we're always on the
campaigning.
third Thursday night of every month. That makes it
Okay.
easier to plan, except our picnic, which is on the third Thursday afternoon and early
Right.
evening of
Okay.
August.
All right. Well, thanks.
Thank you, Jackie.
Okay.
Have a great
Anything else
week.
for the good of the order?
No, thank you very much. Great presentation.
Yeah, really. Thanks, Jackie. Good seeing everybody.
Great
Mhm.
to see you, Zoe.
Yeah, great seeing you too.
Okay. Take care.
Well,
All
thank you
right,
very
everybody
much.
be good and be well.
Thank
too.
you.
All
I
right. Talk to you
will
soon.
remind everyone that our board meeting is on the first Thursday of the month, which means for the month of May, it'll be on the 6th. It's on Zoom at the moment. Once we hold it in person again, it will be at Bees Holgate Station at 27th and Holgate, and is accompanied by an excellent breakfast, which is not provided free of charge. But it's worth the money. But at the moment, it's on Zoom. So all members are entitled and welcome to come to that, add their thoughts, and participate with us. And if you would like to come to that a board meeting by Zoom, just send an email to us and we will be happy to send you the coordinates that will log you on.
Okay.
And with
Thanks.
that, I
Very
guess
good.
we can adjourn the meeting for this evening at 8:11. Thank you all for coming. And on behalf of
you.
our absent president, who is somewhere east of Tulsa at this time at a high altitude and maintaining that altitude, I hope.
Yes.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye.
Eric.
Bye. Take care.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good to see you, Zoe.
Good to see you.